think with this, let's move on. Let's move on to the next talk by Dr. Ajit, and he'll be telling us about systemic parameters, often neglected, often not emphasized to the patient and the family, because I believe that diabetic retinopathy is a family disease. Everybody has to cooperate. Otherwise, control, you see, often we keep hearing from patients, lots of blood sugar, sometimes high, sometimes low. And these, because it's a disease, it's a hyperglycemia which affects the eye per se. So systemic eye, this disease is a systemic disease itself. So all the consequences of DR we are seeing because of systemic involvement, and hence the relevance and importance of this topic, what all to look for, what to tell to the patient, and what should be our targets to control this. Yes, Ajit. Muted. Ajit, can you unmute? Ajit, Ajit, unmute.
Dr. Ajit Babu, you have to unmute yourself.
Ajit Babu.
Unmute yourself, Dr. Babu.
How come he can't hear us? Ajit, you're not audible. You're muted.
Yeah, now it is. Am
Yes,
I audible?
start from first slide
Yeah.
and enlarge it. Slideshow. Yeah, please carry on.
Right. Thank you, Lalit and Mallika, for giving this opportunity. When Mallika contacted me, I chosen this topic because not many people deal with it, and not many people understand the importance of systemic factors in dealing with all the patients of diabetic retinopathy. As Lalit showed in his initial slides, India is one of the highest prevalent country in the world. If you see about 20 million, it is only 4 countries which are there on the world map, and India is clearly the second largest country holding diabetic retinopathy. And among Indian states, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Punjab are the highest prevalent for diabetic retinopathy. And among the diabetics, prevalence of diabetic retinopathy is almost like 35%. PDR is 7.2, DME is 7.4, and any vision threatening diabetic retinopathy is 11.7%. Now, if you want the diabetic retinopathy under control and the worsening should not happen, you need to identify the factors. In this, you can see certain factors you cannot modify, that is non-modifiable risk factors, and certain or modifiable risk factors. Among the non-modifiable risk factors, duration of diabetes and age of the patients are very important. Puberty, there will be a sudden spurt, especially in case of diabetes mellitus type 1, sudden spurt of worsening of the diabetic retinopathy can happen. And during pregnancy, again, there is a big play of factors. This is one paper manuscript from RP Center, which included 50 patients of pregnant woman, where the prevalence is almost like 8%. And during this study, the PDR patients as well as severe NPDR worsened. In the 2 patients who were PDR, out of that, 1 required a surgical intervention. Among the modifiable risk factors, blood sugar control is very, very essential. Blood pressure control, hyperlipidemia, albumin excretion ratio rate, or mainly the nephropathy, anemia, neuropathy, obesity, and inflammatory agents. I deal with in this presentation of 7 minutes some of them. This 11 blocks of candidate risk factors in DCCT trial very clearly shows us that what all we need to look in a diabetic patient. If you see the age, gender, weight, BMI, behavioral in that smoking, drinking, and exercise, family history, blood pressure, mainly the diastolic blood pressure, and medication use like ACE inhibitors and angiotensin converting enzyme blockers and lipid lowering agents. And different lipid levels are also very important, and diabetic specific duration of diabetes and C-peptide insulin therapy and renal complications, mainly the albumin excretion ratio and hypoglycemic events, especially in patients on insulin, and glycemia, HbA1c levels. Over in DCCT, it's already reports are coming with 30 years of follow-up, and with this, there is a very clear evidence that major IDCs endpoints like PDR, CSME, and application of laser or development of blindness. With intensive therapy, there is a great reduction of these complications. If you see the first 6.5 years, we all know that there is a 76% of reduction of complications and progression of diabetic retinopathy in intensive treatment compared to the conventional therapy. However, more important thing which evolved is the metabolic memory, which over next 10 years of period, the effect of intensive therapy has persisted. That is very, very essential. However, this decreases over 11 to 18 years. If you see this slide, you will be seeing significant benefit during first 10 years is almost like 56%, whereas 11 to 18 years, the risk reduction is only 27%, means half of the initial risk. And among the other risk factors like smoking and arterial blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, and microalbuminuria, the intensive therapy is much more role to play than any of these individual risk factors. And this is the 30-year incidence of PDR, nephropathy, and cardiovascular diseases. If you see the intensive therapy in DCCT, it is 20% against 50% of PDR occurrence, whereas 9% against 25% of nephropathy and 9% against 14% of the cardiovascular diseases. When you come to the whole cohort of DCCT, approximately 65% of the patients did not have any PDR. This is also important. Like what we are stressing is intensive therapy. Out of 60% of the population, it really do not matter. And another 60% for CSME and 70% for any ocular surgery. Any ocular surgery includes vitrectomy as well as cataract surgery. And I have given the greatest risk factors for individual components of PDR, CSME, and ocular surgery, where HbA1c, longer duration of type 1 diabetes, elevation of albumin excretion rate, and high mean diastolic pressure for PDR, and rest all I have listed here. However, when it comes to PDR, there are other factors like high pulse rate and being in the primary prevention rather than a secondary intervention. This thing, high HbA1c at baseline and older age are more risk factors. In addition, use of lipid lowering medication, irrespective whether cholesterol is raised or not, has a protective effect, which is a great finding in this study. Atorvastatin was reported from PGI Chandigarh in the very beginning that the diabetic macular edema can reduce significantly when it is started, irrespective of the blood cholesterol levels. However, a systemic review and meta-analysis was done over 4,959 publications. They found 21 publications are suitable for systematic review, and in this meta-analysis, they found a significant correlation between the cholesterol, LDL, and triglycerides with the diabetic macular edema. However, this did not translate into reduction of diabetic macular edema with lipid lowering agents. Again, if you see the inflammatory factors, there is one standard deviation increase in immune complexes is associated with a higher incidence of proliferative diabetic retinopathy, which is very, very significant finding. Means in the future, we may have to assess the blood immune complexes as well as vitreous immune complexes. This is another study proving the same. So inflammatory cytokines in the vitreous and aqueous are also important. And type of medication with for control of hypertension, again, the studies show that both are means the agents are equally effective. More important is to control the tight control of hypertension. The risk of diabetes related endpoints were reduced by 20%, strokes by 44%, and microvascular endpoints by 37%. So in Wikipedia's, these are direct conclusions which were drawn, or the intensive glucose control really improves the microvascular morbidity. That is important, but equally important is it do not reduce the mortality. One need to understand this. The insulin and sulfonylureas use has similar effect. Only in obese patients, metformin is advantageous. Intensive blood pressure control was more beneficial, improving the both morbidity as well as mortality. This is again an additional factor in addition to a good control of blood sugar levels. The ideal targets of HbA1c is below 7 and blood pressure is 140/80 or below. So in conclusions, what I want to add is that assessment of systemic parameters is very, very essential to reduce the risk and stabilization of the disease process so that management of diabetic retinopathy becomes easy. Beneficial effects of initial intensive blood sugar control can last long because of molecular memory. This we can play towards our positivity, because the longer you maintain, the longer will be the molecular memory that can happen in a given patient. And good control of hypertension, I have clearly showed you that it has much more effective co-management of hypertension in diabetic patients is very effective, not only in reduction of risk factors, but the mortality also can be reduced. Control of nephropathy and use of lipid lowering agents can be beneficial. One need to follow very severe NPDR and treat early PDR during pregnancy, because the close follow-ups are very much required in pregnancy, and high risk of progression is there in this advanced stages of diabetic retinopathy. Assessment of inflammatory markers can be useful in predicting the progression of diabetic retinopathy, and it may play a greater role in near future. With this, I would like to thank one more time for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Ajit, for being very, very lucid in your talk. And I think all the factors very, very nicely explained, and why the genesis also. You see, lipids always create confusion. Is the PGI study what you quoted? Can you unshare, please? Is the PGI study what you quoted was only in patients with dyslipidemias, or
they included both dyslipidemia as well as normal?
Yeah, and the only confusing thing which which confused is that meta-analysis you showed. Ultimately, the role of statins was not brought out
clearly.
Yeah.
Because the initial phase, they said the association between the lipids as well as diabetic hard exudates in the macular area is associated. However, reduction of the macular edema is not proven very clearly in meta-analysis. That we need to observe, because it requires much more longer term probably studies.
Can you unshare, please, so that we can see everybody?
Lalit, I have two questions for Ajit.
Yeah, we will come. Just let him unshare the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. प्रशांत, ये अनशेयर करना है या
Ajit,
स्टॉप शेयर ना?
Just go to.
can you explain for everybody, or I think a lot of people are listening, this about what is this memory, metabolic memory? Because you use this word in two, three slides.
Metabolic memory is mainly the HbA1c levels, where a tight control of blood sugar. The effect of progression on diabetic retinopathy is highly effective in 6.5 years of DCCT trial, which was showed.
Yeah.
After that, the EDIC trial is
Yeah.
a continuation of DCCT trial, where the control is not so tight, and the patients are followed once in a year for HbA1c levels and all. So it is not so tight control. So over next 10 years of EDIC, the report showed that the effectiveness is still persisting.
Yeah.
That's why I said the 57% is
So
highly
the
effective.
Initial
Whereas
control,
11
whatever
to 18,
yeah.
yeah, 11 to 18 years,
Yeah.
reduction of progression has come down to 27%. Means half the percentage reduced. Means if you are not controlling or giving a tight control of blood sugar, this effect of halting the progression may not be effective.
You see, there are a couple of questions I will take because they are related to this only. After that, I will come to Dinesh. Because a lot of people are asking, you see, theoretically, EDIC study, DCCT study, everything is very good. How practical Dr. Prasad wants to know is intensive control in real world scenario versus the DCCT you have told.
Yes.
How
yes.
practical is it?
It is highly difficult. Only thing what we need to do is not intensive. Intensive here, I should define also, it is 3 or more injections of insulin, which most of the physicians are not practicing. Means in India, not many physicians are going for intensive therapy. It is very clear.
Yeah.
However, while doing this, at least you should maintain the HbA1c below 7, which now a lot of patients with good education of diabetic retinopathy consequences or diabetes consequences, if you educate them, they are very serious in maintaining HbA1c level between 6 and 7. HbA1c levels below 6 again associated with high risk of myocardial infarction, which I would not advocate for people to control below 6. Means some people are very happy saying that, doctor, I'm having HbA1c levels of 5, which is not good.
Yes, Dinesh, you were trying to make one point.
Yeah, in continuation, this was the issue actually. First of all, to answer what you're saying, it is possible, I can tell you as a personal experience, to bring your HbA1c below 6.5 if you do very intensive dietary control along with oral hypoglycemics. And the reason I'm asking, and this I'm telling you from personal experience, and it takes very little to lose that benefit, because it takes very little bit of, you lose that discipline and you lose the effect also. What I wanted to ask Ajit, because he's reviewed the topic, is I made a mistake. I meaning a diabetic made the mistake. He was not good enough in the first 3 years. So he didn't get the benefit of this metabolic memory. Now he's learned his lesson. How many years of tight control would it require for me to get that benefit back? Is that available?
That is not clearly.
You know, God punishes you, but He doesn't punish you so
long. Yes, I agree. No.
So what is the, if I have to give my patients a carrot that you do another 3 years, you'll be back. Can I get something?
Yeah. No. If you are controlling with the available data with DCCT trial, they initially studied for 6.5 years. After that, it was not so tight control, but the HbA1c is getting maintained. And EDIC trial, they continued and observing. Okay. So at least if you are controlling very well for 4 to 5 years, you will get it back. That's what we can
After
say
the
for
first
sure.
I
But
do the first treatment.
short of that, or little less duration, whether will it last for longer or not, we need to see.
Yes, Malika.
Second, okay, one
Yes.
more question if you don't mind. One
Yeah.
more question was regarding now the patient has already got diabetic macular edema.
Hmm.
In this patient, how many years of control will it take to reflect in terms of improvement of macular edema if I don't use any other methods?
Usually in the clinic, I'm not now coming
Real
out
one,
of the
real.
studies.
Real,
Okay.
real.
In clinic experience is that 6 months is good enough for you to see some improvement. It is not total drying or total disappearance of the hard exudates, but the fluid regression or some drying of the exudates will appear in 6 months' time if you are going for a good systemic control.
Thank you. That's what's very important actually.
You see, other thing which I normally emphasize to the patient, his family, and all attendants is make him reduce weight. You see, believe me, all these parameters what you told, if I tell him tummy ko andar karo, bas, ताकि this, truncal obesity is the single most risk factor, and believe me,
Obesity, Lalit, none of these studies have showed a clear association.
Yeah.
However, they said
yeah,
that the mid-truncal obesity is the most significant factor among all the obesity.
yes,
But whether the clear association of reduction of progression of diabetic retinopathy or associated complications like PDR, CSME is not clearly shown with obesity.
Jeet, the problem is all these things are linked.
I know that.
The weight reduction is linked to good control also, BP control, everything comes down.
That I agree.
Okay, I
but
think we'll ask Murli in case he has any other point in the systemic parameters to be emphasized for the audience.
No, I think we have had nice discussion, and Dinesh brought out very important points. I don't think I have anything to add. The only thing which I would like to add here is that the practical relevance for us in our day-to-day practice is that whenever I see a patient, especially with diabetic macular edema of a particular variety, where is a diffuse edema and things like that, I don't jump into the treatment without verifying the systemic parameters.
Yeah.
If the systemic parameters are way out of control, I wait for at least 1 or 2 months, before I really treat these patients, because many times controlling systemic parameters can definitely improve the macular edema in some of these patients. But this is one thing we have to keep in mind, and let's not jump in and start injecting moment.
I do agree with Murli.
Yes, yes.
I do agree with Murli.
Yes. Yes.
For
So if
patients, actually, I get the systemic parameter evaluation done beforehand.
Yes,
Before
that
I-
is important point
I
I'd
wanted to
like to
emphasize
point out.
here was, Murli, you want to wait before you inject. Till the
Not
parameters are controlled.
necessarily in all patients. It depends. If the systemic factors are way out of control, I don't mind waiting. And if the edema is more like a diffuse edema, I don't mind waiting for a month for them to normalize before I inject. It's not that I'm going to wait in everyone, but certain situations I wouldn't rush in, and I would rather get the systemic parameters all right.
Yeah, Shobhit.
Well, DME is never an emergency. So systemic control comes first, and then the question of injection.
It's not an emergency.
It's a simple philosophy I like to follow.
Rajesh.
So just wanted to add to whatever has already been discussed. Systemic examination, when we look at it, it's not only the HbA1c or sugars. With my oncological background, there are several patients with CML and thing which present something like the diabetic retinopathy status itself, where we are treating the diabetic retinopathy, but the patient doesn't improve. And then, reciprocate, then we go and look at it, get the blood test, and then we realize the patient has CML or any other complication as such, or hemoglobinopathies. So including a complete hemogram, that gives another thing also. We have published recently idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura presenting exactly like diabetic retinopathy and diabetic macular edema, which required only systemic steroids to control it, and the edema resolved by itself. So getting a whole hemogram included into the primary workup will also go a long way in these patients who are mimickers of diabetic retinopathy as such.
So excellent. You see, hemoglobin as well as ITP things have to be ruled out.
Yeah.
Ajit, what are your views about, couple of things which have cropped up is something about sleep apnea, because that also comes, a lot of people they get sleep studies also. And the second question I wanted was about the role of glitazones. You see, this has also been highlighted that pioglitazones versus the other type of glitazones, because patients who are resistant are not responding. Do you review their, sleep cycle or, some
Sleep app we need to, because especially in those cases where there is a differential presentation of between the two eyes, you must keep that as one of the possibilities. Sleep apnea. And glitazones definitely need to be ruled out in case of non-responding diabetic macular edema.
Malika? Yes, Malika.
The studies on glitazones have found, the ACCORD study especially, they
Yeah.
have shown that there is really no disadvantage to glitazones.
Yeah.
So that has been ruled out. So I think we need not look at that actually.
Yeah, glitazones actually long-term people are, even if you talk to endocrinologists, they are not very happy to, listen to the statement that glitazones, because they are very, very effective agents for, yes, Satish?
Yeah, I mean, I think another very important situation where we face with when you're treating with diabetic patients is when they develop this nephropathy, sir. So whenever these patients with nephropathy, especially when they get into the stage of dialysis, so that is the point of time where there is going to be a massive fluctuation of your blood pressure. There is going to be an anemia associated with nephropathy, that is because of the dialysis which is going on. And the third important thing is patients who are undergoing dialysis go towards something called as a heparin dialysis, heparin hemodialysis, which they go through. So all these three important things, when the patient is going on dialysis, the diabetic retinopathy invariably is going to get worsened. I think that is another very important point we need to look into. I think we need to probably, the physicians are not very comfortable. They said, let the anemia persist for 8 to 9, we are not bothered. But for the problem for us is the edema keeps recurring, and it is very difficult for us to manage this case. And I think that's another very practical point, because we often see patients walking to us with the dialysis, getting ourselves treated for diabetic retinopathy in our clinics.
Yeah.
So I think here you have one more
Satish,
point in mind. I'm sorry.
Satish Rose has a lot of relevance in also pre-vitrectomy workup.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is on hemodialysis and
But
anemia and other factors. I just wanted to ask Dinesh, you talked about loss of weight, getting back to discipline. There is a new generation of drugs which are being used for diabetics, basically which are subcutaneous injections for losing weight. I'm forgetting the name of the group. They're just like insulin, but used in conjunction with insulin or oral hypoglycemics in obese diabetics. Anybody on the panel has any experience with how much benefit this has on the improvement or stabilization of diabetic retinopathy, diabetic macular edema, or anything? Because it's being quite a lot used nowadays.
It's a recent addition, but I don't have experience with it.
Yeah, it has been coming to my mind, some of my obese diabetics, should I request the endocrinologist or physician to implement that regimen?
So there are a lot of questions which are coming up on treatment correlation with biomarkers. I think we'll cover in the next topic. If not, then we'll discuss them out.